Welcome back to Vital Signs, where I'm here speaking with Kerry David, and we're talking about a very critical topic to our community health and well-being, and that is the safety of our children. Before the break, Kerry, we were talking about what are some of the things, some of the signs as parents that we should be looking for. Talk to me a little bit about how we create that safe space for children to speak up. What strategies can parents and teachers employ to encourage open communication and trust so that if something is happening, they can come forward and we can nip this in the bud?
Yeah, these are great questions. And for me, I think the tragedy of that is that you have to bring children into these discussions in the first place. They should have a childhood. They should not have to be worried about these conversations. It's uncomfortable for adults. It's probably very confusing for children. But I've spoken now with so many parents about this of different ages. And of course, this all depends on how young your child is and how old your child is when you're going to have this conversation. But the very first thing to do is to say, your body is your own. Nobody gets to touch your body. Not what no one at school, no one outside of your parents and that you can talk to should have any you have agency over your body. That's the number one rule. Some kids are vociferous by nature, and you can say if anyone touches you uncomfortably and you're alone, scream. I mean, because to save you from a life of trauma, it's worth that embarrassment of a scream. Another way to do it, I've been speaking to a lot of fathers and a lot of mothers, and mums have no problem having this conversation with their kids, but fathers have a harder time with it. And some of those fathers are investors in the film. And so they've been thanking me, saying, "You've finally given me something that we can watch. And then we can talk about, because there'll be context, right? And it's somebody else, and we'll see what happened there. And they can role play and say, what would you do in that situation? We hope that will never happen to you, but if it does, and then you could put things in place." So the most important thing is to give them agency over their body. The second thing is to give them a language. If your child comes home and says anything sexual happened to them, it is so remote that they're going to be lying about it. There was one study that we read that was less than 5% of children lie about sexual abuse. And so you have to go with those odds and say there's a 95% chance that if your child brings it up to you, it happened. So the other thing is to give your children an open space to be able to come to you and have these difficult conversations. And maybe it's like you put 15 minutes aside after dinner and you say, hey, let's talk about anything really personal as opposed to the everyday soccer games, volleyball. Um, Giving them a safe space to have dialogue about anything that happened to them that was uncomfortable.
It's really important, and you and I have discussed this in the past. When we don't talk about things and it becomes and topics are off the table or taboo, that's when stuff like this thrives. It's because we're not comfortable having these conversations with our children in our communities. And I just want to kind of speak a little bit to the fact that your film aims to expose corruption, but it also aims to provide resources for victims. Can you share some of these resources and how they are assisting survivors in their healing journey? Because I think that's a really big part of this story and what you are aiming to achieve.
Uh, that's to me the most exciting. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, so this film will have a shelf life, but what happens afterwards? And so the resources speak to what happens after the film has come out and done what it's done. One thing that we found when we were filming is that so many of the parents said we had nowhere to turn. And that meant we didn't know, we couldn't go to a lawyer because most lawyers were frightened of the institutions that were against them. They didn't know any therapists. What ultimately happened in our case was that somebody had the gumption to go to the district attorney. Most people, most normal people, that's just too out of their comfort zone to think about going to the district attorney about something like this. And so what we decided to do was that we would have our website will become a hub of resources, and that will involve attorneys across the nation. So not just in the community, because sometimes you might have to go out the community, have an attorney say, hey, I'll find somebody who's got the gumption to go against the people that you're accusing. Therapists, to have valid confirmed therapists that know how to talk to children and adults with the sexual trauma, and also even to have groups where you can come together and say this happened to me, just having a meeting room and saying, and talk with other survivors. It's more like we want to take the shame away from this. There is no shame in what happened to you. It's shameful behavior what was done to you, but there's no shame involved in what happened to you. And we want to give people hope. We want to give survivors the notion that they can transcend what happened to them. We want to do little short mini documentaries with survivors of abuse who went on to do phenomenal things in their life. And I'm fortunate enough to say that on this journey we've met many, and that we would love to interview them and just have as a standalone to show how something that feels like it's the end of the world for you can actually be something that you can overcome, transcend, and ultimately succeed in your life.
Well, it's really fantastic that you've pulled together these resources for people. And I'm going to ask you to share that website so that anyone who's watching, if they are a victim or they have a suspicion, that they can leverage this amazing resource that you're putting out. So how can people find out more about this, learn more about the resources that are available, or even find out more about Open Secret?
Thank you for that. We're building it, so we have to finish the film first. So that's going to be the next step. So bear with us. Those resources are not up yet. These are our plans after the film. We actually today started a crowdfunding investment fund to fund the finish. Well, we're 80% complete. I will let people know that we're not starting from scratch. We have about 20% more to film. And so we're on wefunder.com. You can find us under wefunder.com/open secret. You can go to our website, which is opensecretthefilm.com. And on our website, we also have an avenue if you'd just like to donate, or if you just like to leave us a message of support. Or if financially you're strapped right now, then please play our trailer and then share that trailer with somebody. And beyond what it does for our film and our awareness, that trailer might speak to somebody who will then see that and say, "Oh my gosh, I was abused." And it's sort of because that has actually happened, with somebody who's in our film, was sitting on the couch with a friend of his, two men. He was playing the trailer because he was now a cast member in the film, and his friend just pulled back in horror and just said, "I was raped by that man." And then his journey of healing began. So even with a trailer, you can start helping people. So imagine what we can do with an entire film, where at the end of the film, we offer resources as well, and we also have solutions. Like, this is not a downer film at all. It's a dramatic film, but I do want to touch on what we actually followed to tell this story was not so much the victims, but it was a group of really courageous community members who decided they were going to challenge these decades of corruption that had allowed for predators to permeate the school district for all that time. And they were going to challenge it, and they were going to start, bring their community back to, and let's just say, a just tomorrow. I think that's the best way of putting it. And so we followed them over 5 years, and like I say, they've had an amazing, tumultuous journey, but ultimately they will be inspirational to you.
That's fantastic. So for those of you who are watching who may want to contribute to this cause, whether it's the film, whether it's some of the resources, whether it's donation, please reach out to Kerry. This is very important work. And so Kerry, I'm going to ask, beyond raising awareness, what actionable steps do you hope Open Secret will inspire in communities and policymakers to address and prevent child sexual abuse in schools?
Yeah, Jen, great question. So in terms of like where this film, the reason beyond the awareness is clearly our legal system is failing children. It's failing families. In the sexual abuse category, it absolutely protects the predators, and so there needs to be legislature which obviously takes a little bit longer. But the more people that know about this, if you understand that 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused, and it's 1 in 5 or 6, depending on which ones you read, of boys, you realize that someone who's been abused. Somebody who's actually abused somebody. And so that's how you prevent it from saying, "Oh, it's happening to the other. It's not in my house right now." I would like to encourage people with this film to say, maybe it doesn't have to happen to your child for you to care. Maybe it's enough that it's happening, and the only way to stop it is by leaning in and helping in some manner, some fashion.
And so, Kerry, how can our audience stay informed and involved in the release of Open Secret and the broader movement against child sex abuse?
Yeah, thank you. So you can come to our website, which is opensecretthefilm.com, which we update regularly. We're also updating wefunder.com/open secret. That's being updated with all of our, everything about the film that you should know. And you can also email me. My email is very easy to get to. It's producer period grl at gmail.com. Call me with questions. If the awareness factor is huge in terms of before the film is even finished. I will speak on other podcasts. I will bring in people who are in the film and have us all speak to this, because it's really fascinating when you hear how men come to this and how women come to this, and it's very different. Men are very resistant to address this, because they just don't have the language for it. So we hope to be offering that and saying, well, have this be like a social impact investment on your portfolio, and that's how you've helped. You don't have to talk about it, just help us finish the film and we'll do the talking for you.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for your dedication to shedding light on such a critical issue. It's commendable, it's necessary, it's hard work, and your labor of love and passion to support our children is commendable. Thank you for sharing your insights and your unwavering commitment to protecting our children.
And thank you so much for having me on. And just having met you, I've met so many incredible women on this journey, and men, but you're certainly up there. So thank you so much for giving us this platform.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. We do have to take a brief break, but we will be right back after these messages.